In a world where love defies boundaries, witness the captivating story of an Apache woman who dares to follow her heart. As she navigates the challenges of forbidden's love, her journey intertwines with a cowboy's fate, revealing the power of connection amidst societal expectations. Join us for an emotional ride that explores the depths of love, sacrifice, and the courage to embrace one's true self. The desert stretched endlessly, a vast sea of golden sand and jagged rocks, painted with streaks of crimson as the sun dipped low on the horizon. The wind whispered through the canyons, carrying the scent of sagebrush and distant smoke. In this unforgiving land, every sound, every shadow could mean danger or salvation. Ethan rode his horse along a narrow ridge, the leather of his saddle creaking beneath him. His heart beat with both excitement and unease. The army had sent him to scout the Apache lands, to map the territory, to gather intelligence. But in truth, he felt like an intruder in a world that was not his own. He had grown up hearing stories of the Apache, stories of fierce warriors, untamed lands, and women who could shoot an arrow through the eye of a hawk in mid-flight. He had dismissed these tales as exaggerations in his youth. But now, standing at the edge of a canyon that seemed to swallow the horizon, he felt a deep respect and fear for the people who called this rugged land home. Every rock, every tumbleweed, seemed to hum with life, with history, with secrets. Nima moved through the canyon like a shadow, her steps silent yet deliberate. She had lived her entire life in these lands, learning its rhythms and moods. The mountains, the rivers, the arid plains, they were her home, her sanctuary, and her battlefield. Her dark hair caught the last rays of the sun, glinting like onyx, and her eyes scanned the horizon with a predator's focus. She knew the stories of the soldiers, the intruders who came with uniforms and guns, and she knew she had to protect her people at all costs. Yet there was something about this young officer who rode alone, his gaze distant, almost curious. Their first encounter was fleeting, almost accidental. Ethan had dismounted near a narrow stream, hoping to refill his canteen and rest his horse. He didn't notice the faint rustle of brush behind him, the way a shadow moved in perfect silence. Nima watched, her heart pounding, torn between the duty to strike and the strange fascination with this outsider. She had never seen him before, yet there was a strange aura around him, a quiet strength, tempered with vulnerability. Ethan felt it too. The moment he sensed her presence, a shiver ran down his spine. It wasn't fear, at least, not entirely. It was something deeper, a magnetic pull he couldn't explain. He turned slowly, hand hovering near his holster, and there she was. Nima stood partially hidden among the rocks, her stance proud, eyes steady, unwavering. The world seemed to hold its breath. For a heartbeat, neither spoke. The wind carried their silence, stretching the moment into eternity. Ethan saw the determination in her eyes, but also a spark of curiosity. Nima, in turn, noticed the kindness in his gaze, a softness that didn't belong to a soldier on a mission. Something unspoken passed between them, a recognition of each other's humanity in a world that was determined to keep them apart. Then, as quickly as the moment had come, it was gone. Nima stepped back into the shadows, melting into the landscape like a phantom. Ethan's heart pounded not from the exertion, but from the sudden, inexplicable connection he felt. He knew he had crossed into forbidden's territory, but the memory of her eyes, the curve of her jaw in the fading light, would linger in his mind long after the canyon swallowed the last rays of sun. That night, as Ethan made camp beneath a canopy of stars, the desert seemed alive with possibilities. The vast emptiness no longer felt threatening, it hummed with promise, with danger, with the unspoken pull of something forbidden and beautiful. And somewhere, in the silence of the canyons, Nima too lay awake, wondering about the stranger who had ridden into her world and left a mark on her heart she couldn't explain, the stage was set. Two worlds apart, yet drawn together by a force neither could resist. The desert, in all its harshness and beauty, would witness the beginning of a story that would defy boundaries, challenge loyalties, and ignite a love as untamed as the land itself. The morning sun barely pierced the canyon, painting the rocks in muted golds and reds. Ethan's horse stumbled over a loose stone, sending a jolt through his body. He cursed it under his breath, scanning the terrain. Every ridge, every shadow, felt alive. He had wandered farther than intended, and the unease he had felt before now gnawed at him. From above, hidden among jagged rocks, Nima watched. Her pulse raced not from fear, but from curiosity. Few outsiders dared this deep into Apache lands, and fewer still moved alone. The way he moved, hesitant, alert, yet undeniably human, set him apart from the soldiers who marched blindly into her territory. Ethan heard the faintest shift in the gravel behind him. He froze. His hand instinctively moved toward the pistol at his hip, but he didn't draw it. Something in the air made him pause, a sense that he was being observed, studied, not attacked. Nima stepped into view, just enough to reveal herself, her posture proud, unwavering. She was beautiful in a way that made Ethan's chest tighten, strong, untamed, and mesmerizing. Her dark eyes met his, holding a mix of warning and curiosity. The world seemed to fall away. No desert, no army, no orders, just the two of them. "Who are you?" Ethan asked, his voice low, controlled, though he felt it waver. Nima's lips curved slightly, a smile that didn't reach her eyes, tempered by caution. "You're far from home, soldier," she said. Her voice was soft, yet carried an unspoken edge of authority. "And even farther from safety." Ethan swallowed, his throat dry. "I mean no harm," he said. "I'm just passing through." For a heartbeat, Nima considered striking, driving him back into the canyon and erasing this intrusion. But then she saw something in him that wasn't like the others who came with guns and arrogance. He hesitated, looked around, alert but not threatening. There was a strange vulnerability that made her chest tighten. "You shouldn't be here," she said finally. "This is no place for a man like you, and yet—" "Here I am," Ethan replied, a half-smile tugging at his lips, though his eyes never left hers. The tension between them was electric, impossible to ignore. The wind swept through the canyon, lifting strands of hair across Nima's face. She brushed them aside, aware of every rapid beat of her heart. Ethan, in turn, felt a pull he couldn't explain, a dangerous curiosity, a desire to understand the woman who seemed as untamed as the land itself. Then, almost instinctively, he stepped a fraction closer. Nima's hand twitched toward her knife, but she didn't draw it. Their eyes locked, and in that brief, suspended moment, time seemed to bend. The desert, with all its peril, felt like a private stage for their encounter. "I won't harm you," Ethan whispered. "I swear it." Her gaze softened just slightly. "And I won't let you forget you're a stranger here," she replied. A laugh, light and reluctant, escaped him. "Fair enough." The wind shifted again, carrying with it the scent of sage and distant fires, and in that fleeting instant, both realized something undeniable. A spark had ignited. Dangerous, forbidden, and thrilling. Neither could explain it, but both felt it, a connection as fierce and untamed as the desert around them. Nima stepped back, melting into the shadows of the canyon. Ethan watched her go, the pulse of anticipation and a strange ache thrumming through his chest. He knew, even as he mounted his horse, that this encounter would haunt him. Not as a threat, not as a challenge, but as the memory of the woman who had already begun to steal his heart. The canyon returned to silence. Yet for both of them, the world had shifted. They were no longer just soldier and Apache. They were two souls drawn to each other across a boundary that should never be crossed. And neither would ever be the same. The nights in the desert were deceptively quiet. The stars stretched across the sky in endless constellations, and the moon cast silver shadows over the jagged canyon walls. Ethan rode cautiously along a narrow trail, his heart pounding with anticipation and anxiety. He knew the risks. If anyone from his unit or Nima's tribe discovered him, the consequences could be deadly. Yet the pull he felt toward her was stronger than fear. Nima waited in the shadows, as silent and fluid as the night itself. Her heart raced at the thought of seeing him again. Each secret meeting was a stolen moment, a rebellion against the world that demanded they remain apart. She watched Ethan approach, the moonlight catching the contours of his face, revealing the same vulnerability she had glimpsed before. And yet, there was a quiet strength in him that intrigued her, something that made her lower her guard just a fraction. "Ethan," she whispered as he dismounted, the sound of his name a soft, almost sacred melody in the still night. "Nima," he replied, his voice a mix of awe and tenderness. "I hoped you'd be here." For a moment, the tension of the world seemed to vanish. No soldiers, no orders, no battles, just the two of them, bound by something they could neither name nor resist. Ethan reached out instinctively, brushing a loose strand of hair from her face. She felt the warmth of his fingers, a shiver running through her, and for a heartbeat, she forgot every caution, every rule. "You shouldn't be here," she said, though her voice lacked conviction. "And yet I am," he answered, his gaze locking with hers, a silent confession hidden in the depths of his eyes. They spoke little at first, letting the silence stretch between them, filled with unspoken thoughts and electric tension. Each movement, each glance, carried weight. Ethan studied her face, memorizing the curve of her jaw, the strength in her eyes, the way her lips moved when she spoke. Nima, in turn, noticed the subtle ways he carried himself, the gentleness behind his strength, the care in his movements, the vulnerability he didn't try to hide. As the nights continued, they shared stories of their lives. Nima of the desert, the wind and the spirits that guided her people. Ethan of the distant towns, the forests he had ridden through, and the soldier he had been trained to be. Every story revealed something deeper, a shared understanding that grew between them. One night, beneath a sky dusted with stars, Ethan dared to hold her hand. The contact was electric, a jolt that sent warmth flooding through them both. Nima's breath caught. She had imagined this moment countless times, but never allowed herself to fully believe it could happen. His thumb traced small, careful circles on her palm, and she felt the world shrink until there was nothing but the warmth between them. "You make this dangerous world feel different," Ethan murmured. Nima's lips curved into a soft smile. "And you make it feel less lonely." They laughed quietly, the sound mingling with the whispering wind. In those stolen hours, they discovered more than affection. They discovered trust, intimacy, and the intoxicating thrill of forbidden love. Every glance, every touch, was a rebellion, a choice to defy the rules and expectations pressing in from both sides. But even as their connection deepened, the shadow of danger loomed. Every encounter carried risk, every secret meeting was a gamble. And yet, neither could resist the pull they felt toward each other. In the stillness of the night, with only the stars and desert wind as witnesses, Ethan and Nima began to weave a bond that was stronger than fear, stronger than reason, and more passionate than either had ever known. By the time the first rays of dawn crept over the horizon, they would part reluctantly, hearts heavy with the ache of separation. And yet, in that ache was hope, a hope that in a world determined to keep them apart, they had found something worth risking everything for. The first light of dawn stretched across the desert, painting the canyon in shades of gold and rose. Ethan rode back to camp with his thoughts in turmoil. Each moment with Nima haunted him, the curve of her smile, the fierce intensity of her eyes, the way her presence made the wind itself seem to hum. Yet with every heartbeat, reality pressed down like a weight. He had a duty, a uniform, orders he could not ignore. Back in the army camp, Ethan moved through his duties mechanically, the world around him blurred by the memory of her. Every conversation with his fellow soldiers felt distant, every command from his superior hollow. He had trained his entire life to follow orders, to think strategically, to remain detached. But now, for the first time, he understood that some things were beyond strategy. Some things were matters of the heart. Nima, meanwhile, sat on a rocky ledge overlooking the canyon, her bow resting across her knees. Her tribe relied on her vigilance, on her strength, and yet, in the quiet of the morning, her thoughts wandered relentlessly to Ethan. She chastised herself. He was a soldier, a potential enemy. Love was a luxury she could ill afford. And yet, each memory of him, each secret smile, each fleeting touch made her resolve crumble a little more. Their next encounter was no longer a simple thrill. It carried the weight of choice. When Ethan met her in the shadow of a secluded ravine, he saw it mirrored in her eyes, the struggle between desire and duty. "You shouldn't have come," Nima said, her voice steady but her hands betraying a slight tremble. "I couldn't stay away," he admitted, stepping closer. "Every hour without you feels wrong. I feel like I'm betraying something I can't even name." Her gaze softened, but her posture remained defensive. "You betray more than yourself if you continue this," she said. "Your people, my people. Neither would understand." Ethan reached for her hand, just barely grazing her fingers. "I don't care," he whispered, a raw intensity in his voice. "I care about this about you." "I've never felt anything like it." Nima's breath caught. She wanted to pull away, to protect herself and her tribe, but instead she let him take her hand. "And I," she admitted quietly, "have never known a man like you. Someone who sees me, not just my people, not just the land I protect, but me." The tension between them grew, a tug-of-war of emotion and responsibility. Each kiss they shared, each brush of skin against skin, was a rebellion but also a reminder of the impossible path they had chosen. Love for them was dangerous. Yet every heartbeat, every glance, deepened the connection they both tried to resist. That night, alone beneath a sky blazing with stars, Ethan whispered into the desert wind, "I don't know if we can survive this." Nima's eyes glistened. "Maybe we can't," she said, resting her forehead against his. "But even if we don't, I don't regret a single moment." For the first time, they understood the depth of their emotions and the impossible choices that awaited them. Every meeting was a risk, every stolen touch a defiance of everything they had been taught. And yet, they clung to one another, knowing that in this harsh, unforgiving world, love was their greatest rebellion and their most dangerous weapon. As the wind swept across the canyon, carrying whispers of the tribe and distant drumbeats of soldiers, Ethan and Nima faced the truth. Their hearts had chosen each other, but their worlds were not ready to accept it. And in that conflict, in that fragile, aching tension, their love became more than desire. It became a promise, fragile yet unbreakable, that would guide them through every storm yet to come. The desert air felt heavier that evening, thick with the scent of smoke and dust. Ethan's horse pawed nervously at the rocky ground as he made his way to the secluded meeting place. His instincts screamed that something was off, an unease that had nothing to do with the harsh terrain or the heat of the sun. Nima was already waiting, perched atop a boulder, her eyes scanning the horizon with sharp focus. The usual thrill of seeing him was tempered by caution. A shadow of fear lingered behind her confident gaze. Something or someone was watching. "You're late," she said softly, though the tension in her voice betrayed her worry. "I sensed trouble," Ethan admitted, dismounting and scanning the canyon around them. His pulse quickened as he noticed footprints in the dirt soldier tracks, unmistakably recent, heading toward the ridge above. Nima's lips pressed into a thin line. "We've been careless," she whispered, almost to herself. "Someone may have seen us. Someone may know." The realization hit both of them like a punch to the chest. Their secret, their fragile bond, was at risk. Ethan wanted to reassure her, to promise that nothing would harm them, but he knew better. Danger wasn't something you could promise away, it was something you faced. "Head on. They can't know about us," he said quietly, taking her hand in his. "Not my people, not yours, if they do." "We're finished," Nima nodded, swallowing hard. "I know. That's why we must be careful. Every step, every word. It matters now more than ever." The desert around them seemed suddenly alive with threat. A hawk cried from above, the wind shifted, carrying with it a faint echo of footsteps. Their eyes met, communicating a mixture of fear, frustration, and undeniable longing. In that shared glance, both understood the stakes. Love, once a private rebellion, had become a dangerous game. Hours later, they were discovered, though not immediately. A young scout from Ethan's unit had stumbled upon evidence of their secret rendezvous, footprints near the riverbank, a discarded piece of fabric caught on a thorn. Panic surged through Ethan. He knew that once rumors began, it would only be a matter of time before suspicion turned into investigation, confrontation, or worse. Nima's expression hardened. "We can't let them find out who you are or who I am," she said, urgency threading through every word. "We need to disappear from sight." "For now," Ethan nodded, desperation clawing at his chest. He had never felt so torn between duty and heart. Every instinct screamed to obey orders, to report back to camp. But his loyalty had shifted. He was loyal to her now, to the bond that had become the center of his world. That night, hidden in a narrow canyon crevice, they held each other close. The fear of exposure mingled with the heat of their desire. Each brush of a hand, each whispered word, became both comfort and defiance. "If anyone finds us," Ethan murmured into her hair, "we'll have to fight. Or run. Or, I don't know. But I won't let them take you from me." Nima's lips pressed against his collarbone, a shiver of vulnerability and resolve mingling. "Then we fight," she whispered. "Not with guns or swords, but with our hearts. We protect what's ours, together." The desert held its breath as if acknowledging the promise. They were two against the world, two hearts entwined in secrecy and danger. Every secret meeting, every stolen glance, had now become a lifeline, a defiance of the world that demanded they remain apart. But the threat was real, looming closer with every passing hour. Their love, once a source of joy and rebellion, was now a beacon that could draw the wrong eyes. And as the wind whistled through the canyon, Ethan and Nima understood something chilling. Survival might require more than courage, it might demand sacrifice. The desert night was a blanket of silver and shadow. The moon hung low, casting long, soft streaks of light across the rugged canyon walls. Crickets chirped faintly, and the occasional gust of wind rustled the sagebrush, carrying the scent of dry earth and distant smoke. Ethan and Nima had slipped away from the prying eyes of soldiers and scouts, finding a hidden alcove carved into the rocks, a place that felt suspended in time. Untouched and sacred, Nima sat cross-legged on a smooth stone, her eyes reflecting the moonlight, her posture tense but open. Ethan stood a few feet away, his hands resting on the saddle of his horse, though he barely noticed its presence. The air between them was charged, heavy with unspoken words, long-held fears, and desires they could no longer contain. "I've been afraid," Ethan began, his voice barely above a whisper. "Afraid of what I feel, and afraid of what it could cost us." Nima's gaze softened. She had expected bravery, perhaps arrogance, or even stoicism. But the vulnerability in his eyes, so rare for a soldier, made her heart ache. "I've been afraid too," she admitted. afraid of letting my heart choose what my head tells me is impossible. He took a cautious step closer, the soft crunch of gravel beneath his boots the only sound between them. "Every time I think of you," he said, his voice trembling slightly, "I feel like I'm betraying everything I was taught. And yet, I can't stop thinking of you." Of us, Nima's breath caught, and for the first time, she let herself truly feel the pull between them, the dangerous, thrilling attraction that had been simmering since their first encounter. She reached out, her hand brushing against his. The contact was electric, sending a shiver up both their spines. "I've never met anyone like you," she whispered. "Someone who sees me, not just as an Apache warrior, but as Nima. Someone who makes me feel alive, even in the shadow of danger." Ethan's chest tightened, and he knelt before her, taking both her hands in his. "I've never known a love like this," he said, his voice raw and honest. "A love that feels inevitable, even though I know it's forbidden. I don't care about orders or danger or what anyone thinks. I care about you. Only you." Tears glimmered in Nima's eyes, a mix of fear and longing. She placed her free hand on his cheek, feeling the warmth of his skin, the pulse of his heart. "Then we have to hold on to it," she said softly. "Even if the world hates it. Even if it means risking everything. Because I can't imagine not having you in my life." The desert seemed to lean in, the wind carrying their whispered confessions into the night. Ethan leaned closer, their foreheads touching, breaths mingling. The world outside, the soldiers, the tribe, the dangers faded into insignificance. There was only this moment, this raw, unguarded intimacy. Finally, their lips met in a tentative, lingering kiss, the kind that speaks of promises, of hope, of defiance. It was a kiss of relief, of surrender, and of recognition that whatever came next, their hearts were bound irrevocably. As they pulled back slightly, resting their foreheads together, Nima murmured, "I don't care what happens. You've stolen my heart, Ethan, and I won't let it go. I don't want you to," he whispered. "I never will." Under the vast desert sky, two souls from different worlds had found each other. And in that fragile, stolen moment, they had confessed the depth of their hearts, igniting a love that was as passionate and untamed as the land around them, a love that would shape the choices, the sacrifices, and the risks they were willing to take in the days to come. The morning sun rose blood red over the canyon, casting long, sharp shadows across the desert floor. Ethan's horse pawed nervously as he surveyed the ridge ahead, a heaviness settling over his chest. The army had ordered him to lead a patrol near Apache territory, a mission that, unknown to his superiors, would put him directly in harm's way for Nima's people. Every instinct screamed that he should turn back, yet duty and the chains of command bound him. Nima had sensed the danger even before he spoke. Her brow furrowed as she watched him approach their secret meeting spot, tension radiating from every line of his body. The bond they shared was no longer just about stolen moments and quiet confessions. It had become a risk that threatened the lives of both of them. "You're leaving," she stated, her voice steady but lined with fear. "I have to," Ethan said, though his eyes betrayed the turmoil within. "Orders. Duty. I can't ignore them." "Not completely." Nima's hands clenched at her sides, nails digging into her palms. "And yet, if you follow those orders, you'll bring death to my people. To my family." Ethan took a step closer, his jaw tight. "I know. That's why I need you to trust me. I'll find a way to keep them safe. To keep us safe." Her eyes flashed with frustration, anger, and a deep, aching fear. "Trust isn't enough. Not when lives are at stake." "You can't—" "I can," he interrupted, his voice breaking with emotion. "I will. I love you, Nima. I can't stand the thought of losing you, not like this, not to anything." For a heartbeat, silence fell between them. The desert wind swept across the rocks, carrying dust, whispers, and the distant sounds of life wild, unrestrained and unforgiving. Nima's chest heaved as she weighed the impossible choice: protect her tribe as her people demanded, or protect the man who had captured her heart. "You don't understand," she said finally, her voice softening, trembling. "Even if you survive this mission, the world we live in, it will never forgive us. Our love is a danger in itself, and yet I can't walk away," Ethan replied, his hand reaching for hers, gripping tightly. "I don't care about forgiveness, or rules, or orders. I care about you. I care about you." Snima's gaze softened, tears glimmering at the corners of her eyes. "Then we do what we must," she whispered. "Together. Whatever comes, we face it together." Their decision sealed in the quiet of the desert, Ethan mounted his horse, Nima holding his gaze until the last possible moment. Every step he took toward his patrol felt heavier than the last, weighted with the fear of failure, the ache of leaving her, and the certainty that the choices they made now could destroy everything they held dear. Hours later, in the heat of confrontation, Ethan's unit came upon a hostile encampment. He acted decisively, leading his men in ways that minimized bloodshed, always mindful of Nima's people. He sacrificed tactical advantage for mercy, putting himself at risk to spare the lives of those he loved and the life he hoped to share with Nima. Meanwhile, Nima guided her tribe silently, protecting them from both soldiers and opportunistic enemies, her heart pounding with worry for Ethan. Every arrow she loosed, every decision she made, carried the weight of their love, their bond, and the impossible sacrifices they were forced to endure. When the dust settled and the sun began its descent, both Ethan and Nima stood apart, exhausted, bloodied by the day's battles yet alive. Their eyes found each other across the desert floor, and in that gaze, unspoken words passed: fear, relief, love, and the knowledge that they had chosen each other over everything else. But even as they reunited briefly, the reality remained. The world outside their bond would never forgive them, and the price of love in a land divided by duty and loyalty was a constant, looming shadow. Their hearts had won a battle, but the war for love, survival, and acceptance was only beginning. The desert was alive with the quiet hum of the wind, carrying the scent of sage and distant smoke. Ethan and Nima stood atop a ridge, the canyon stretching endlessly below them, bathed in the golden glow of the setting sun. The battles were over for now, but the war between their worlds, between duty and love, was far from finished. Ethan turned to Nima, his eyes dark with emotion. "We can't go back," he said softly. "The army, your tribe, they would never accept this. Not us, not our love." Nima's gaze swept over the canyon, the vastness of the land mirroring the vastness of the choice before them. Her hand found his, fingers intertwining with a firmness that betrayed both fear and determination. "Then we don't go back," she said, her voice steady, resolute. "We go forward together." A fragile silence fell between them, filled only by the whisper of the wind. They both knew the consequences of this choice. They would be fugitives, outsiders to both worlds, walking a path that was dangerous, uncertain, and utterly their own. Yet neither flinched. The desert had tested them, forged them in fire, and now it bore witness to their defiance, their love. Ethan brushed a loose strand of hair from her face, his fingers lingering against her cheek. "I don't care about the world anymore," he whispered. "I care about you. Always you." Nima's lips curved into a small, bittersweet smile. "And I care about you," she admitted, her eyes glistening with tears she refused to shed. "Even if it means the world is against us. Even if it means we have nothing but each other." Their foreheads touched, a quiet promise sealing their bond. And then, as the sun dipped below the horizon, they moved together leaving the ridge and the world that sought to keep them apart. Each step into the unknown was a declaration that love, even forbidden, even dangerous, could defy boundaries stronger than fear, stronger than duty. As night fell, they found themselves in a hidden valley, a secret sanctuary carved from the heart of the desert. Here, for the first time, they could simply exist, not as soldier and warrior, not as representatives of divided worlds, but as Ethan and Nema, two souls bound together by choice and passion. The stars above mirrored the fire in their hearts. They sat together, hands clasped, bodies close, feeling the steady beat of life and love against the harshness of the world. Every touch, every glance, spoke of survival, resilience, and hope. They had chosen each other over everything, and that choice, they realized, was more powerful than any law, any order, or any tradition. Mima leaned her head against his shoulder. "We'll have to be careful," she murmured, voice soft but certain. "The world hasn't changed. But here, in this moment, it's ours." Ethan kissed the top of her head. "Then let this be the start," he said. "No matter what comes, we face it together, always." The desert stretched on endlessly, vast and untamed, just like the love that had grown between them. Two hearts, once divided by duty, loyalty, and fear, had chosen a future together, a future written not by rules or tradition, but by the courage to love in the face of impossible odds. And as the stars blinked alive above, Ethan and Nema knew one truth, fierce and unyielding. Love, when true, knows no boundaries.